Good morning, evening, or night, wherever you are. Welcome to WHAM Today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Wednesday, 18th June 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. Saudi Arabia is aggressively working to diversify its economy, with the finance minister stressing the need to move away from its energy dependence and pushing for global initiatives to combat energy poverty. In financial news, Al Sulaiman Group, the operator of IKEA in Saudi Arabia, finalized its acquisition of Tajir Finance, while Asiafin expanded into the Saudi market, securing a substantial contract with a government financial institution. The Saudi Industrial Development Fund, CITEF, investment company made its initial overseas limited partner investment in a private equity fund. Despite these developments, analysts are questioning the efficacy of Saudi Arabia's borrowing practices in fostering economic growth. Flynas, a Saudi-based airline, faced difficulties in its initial public offering due to regional conflict anxieties. JD.com is introducing its Joy Express B2C courier service in Saudi Arabia, promising same-day and next-day delivery across most of its provinces, thereby intensifying competition with Meituan in the Middle East. On the international stage, Saudi Arabia is calling for global intervention to stop escalating Israeli actions in the region. The country is also recognized as a leader in artificial intelligence within the Gulf and the broader Arab world. There are reports indicating that Saudi Arabian clubs are trying to recruit Sun Heung-min with a high-value contract. In sports-related news, FIFA and Saudi Arabia's efforts to involve Cristiano Ronaldo in the Club World Cup did not succeed. Turning to the United Arab Emirates, the country, along with Saudi Arabia, is expected to be reclassified as a developed market. Australia's labour market saw an unexpected contraction, primarily due to a decrease in part-time positions. The Australian stock market also faced headwinds, with shares dropping to a 2-week low as mining and gold stocks faltered. This market downturn is partially attributed to uncertainty regarding the Federal Reserve's interest rate decisions. Mayne Pharma's shareholders have approved a takeover bid from Cosette Pharmaceuticals. KMD Brands is bracing for potential earnings impacts stemming from US tariffs. The Australian Securities and Investments Commission, ASIC, penalized equity trustees with infringement notices for allegedly issuing misleading investment statements. Vanguard's Australian shares index ETF has now become Australia's largest ETF, boasting $20 in assets. National Australia Bank, NABE, incurred a $488,800 penalty for breaching consumer data rights regulations. On the geopolitical front, Australia has enacted sanctions targeting Russia's shadow fleet. China's economic trajectory is under close scrutiny as Premier Li Qiang urges Jiangsu province to enhance its technology, trade, and consumption sectors. Initial signs suggested consumer goods recovery, with sales volumes increasing even as deflation persists. May saw a substantial $33 billion net capital inflow into China's non-banking sectors, boosted by Middle Eastern investments, while Oaktree's Howard Marks pushes for increased foreign investor access. A major Chinese soy sauce producer is preparing to list in Hong Kong. Beijing is exploring reforms that could allow tech giants like Alibaba and Tencent to list in Shenzhen, potentially boosting domestic capital markets. The governor of China's central bank has also voiced concerns about the US dollar's global reserve currency status. Russia faces scrutiny as the EU's top diplomat raises concerns over increased military spending, suggesting potential expansionist ambitions within Europe. Simultaneously, Russia has cautioned the United States against military intervention in Iran, warning of a possible nuclear disaster. Amidst heightened tensions in the Middle East, President Putin has offered Russia's mediation to de-escalate the Israel-Iran conflict, following discussions with the UAE's president. Economically, Russia's automotive sector anticipates challenges, with Avtovaz, the country's largest car manufacturer, forecasting a market contraction of 25% this year. To circumvent financial restrictions, Russia is increasing its reliance on cryptocurrency for international trade settlements, projecting volumes to reach 1 trillion rubles by 2025. Through 2025. Sberbank, a major Russian financial institution, is actively developing an advanced large language model, LM, with sophisticated reasoning capabilities. Meanwhile, the EU is considering ways to utilize profits generated from frozen Russian assets. India is experiencing a mix of economic and international developments. Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds differing views from former U.S. President Donald Trump regarding the U.S.'s role in a ceasefire agreement with Pakistan. On the economic front, Nuvama Institutional Equities indicates that India's bull market is maturing and recommends investors shift their focus towards sectors such as metals and telecommunications. To bolster renewable energy trading, India is proposing virtual power agreements, VPS. The Indian markets regulator has also eased investment rules for foreign investors, specifically purchasing government bonds. Air India is set to reduce its international flights by 15% due to inspections and operational disruptions stemming from a Boeing Dreamliner crash. Canada's financial and energy sectors are currently abuzz with activity. The S&P TX Composite Index experienced a modest climb, increasing by 0.07%. Meanwhile, in the cryptocurrency arena, Canada has introduced its inaugural spot XRP ETF, creating fresh investment pathways. 3 XRP ETFs were launched on the Toronto Stock Exchange in a single day, broadening access to regulated crypto assets. The REC launched its XRPQ ETF. These XRP ETFs are anticipated to spark a surge of capital as Canada embraces crypto investments. Turning to energy, Canada is poised to potentially produce its first line by this weekend. Japan's Nippon Steel successfully completed its $15 acquisition of U.S. steel, contingent upon reaching a security agreement. However, the country's exports saw an unwelcome decrease in May, marking the first decline in 8 months, partly influenced by tariffs enacted by the U.S. Under the Trump administration, auto shipments to the U.S. fell sharply, registering a nearly 25% drop. Addressing market anxieties, Japan also plans to curtail its sales of super long bonds by 10%. Turning to Vietnam, Japanese retail heavyweight Tokyo Lifestyle is making a calculated move into the nation's burgeoning consumer market. Israel is navigating economic challenges amid multi-front conflicts, leaning on increased taxes and its robust high-tech industry. President Herzog has clarified that Israel's goal regarding Iran is dismantling its nuclear program, not instigating regime change. The Israel-Iran conflict is influencing market instability and affecting stock valuations. Meanwhile, the United States is allegedly bracing for a possible strike against Iran in the near future. The continuing tensions between Israel and Iran are also creating anxiety for oil analysts as they attempt to predict the potential consequences for oil prices. The United States is once again grappling with its national debt, a persistent issue stemming from the government's annual expenditures outpacing its revenue. Congress has the power to manage the debt limit, possessing the ability to raise, suspend, or even eliminate it. Experts, including Shia Abbas from the Bipartisan Policy Center and Jay Powell, before his appointment as Federal Reserve Chair, have devised methods to forecast the X-date, the critical point at which the U.S. government can no longer fulfill its financial commitment. Current estimates indicate that this year's X-date may arrive as early as this summer, adding urgency to the ongoing debate. European Union leaders are pushing for increased sanctions against Moscow due to the continued war in Ukraine. Trade talks between the EU and the UK have stalled. An EU diplomat has suggested Europeans consider learning Russian if aid to Kharkiv falters. Ukraine launched an attack targeting a Russian drone factory. The ongoing war and Vladimir Putin's rise have spurred a generational divide, as examined in our dear friends in Moscow. United States, under the Trump administration, has concluded a trade agreement with the United Kingdom. Simultaneously, the U.S. is adopting a tough stance in trade negotiations with Japan, employing tariff policies. South Korea is closely monitoring its financial markets and preparing to respond quickly to any instability arising from the Middle East situation. The nation is also undertaking a strategic initiative in Syria. In related news, Alibaba Cloud is scheduled to open its second data center in South Korea by June. Pakistan's financial landscape is currently a mix of successes and concerns. The nation managed to secure over $420 billion through a recent bond auction, highlighted by the introduction of its inaugural 15-year zero-coupon bond. Simultaneously, the share value of Avic Chengdu Aircraft dipped by 5%, a development that occurred after Army Chief Munir's meeting with US President Trump. Shifting to domestic policy, a Pakistani parliamentary committee is advocating for the elimination of the 18% tax levied on imported solar panels, aiming to promote renewable energy adoption. South Africa faces potential setbacks in medical research due to budget constraints, which may affect international health programs and U.S. pharmaceutical interests. The South African rand has strengthened in response to domestic economic figures, as markets anticipate the U.S. Federal Reserve's rate announcement. Celebratory crowds greeted the victorious Proteas cricket team in Johannesburg after their World Test Championship win. France grapples with economic headwinds amid Europe's uneven recovery, struggling to attract investors compared to the more robust German markets. Meanwhile, Netflix is collaborating with French broadcaster TF1 to offer live and on-demand content, marking a foray into conventional television formats. Europe's stock markets are showing mixed signals as traders brace for upcoming central bank decisions, with Germany's DAX index currently trending downwards. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin has signaled his willingness to hold discussions with Germany's Friedrich Merz. Bank mergers in Italy are encountering resistance from both investors and the government in Rome, and the head of the Italian Stock Exchange has pointed out the underrepresentation of women in CEO positions within the country. In the UK, the May inflation rate is reported at 3.4%. An investigation has traced a significant blackout in Spain and Portugal to an error made by the Spanish power grid operator RE, along with power generators. Switzerland and Norway have formalized an agreement concerning CO2 storage, while the OECD has recommended that Switzerland strengthen its whistleblower protection measures. Furthermore, Switzerland's financial aid to Latvia has surpassed 40 million euros. Shifting to Asia-Pacific, stock markets are generally on the decline, influenced by Wall Street's mixed performance and persistent tensions in the Middle East. Thailand's equity benchmark is approaching a 5-year low following the departure of a major party from the ruling coalition, putting pressure on Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra. Malaysia's foreign exchange reserves have hit a 3-year peak, which is expected to bolster the ringgit's stability. BlackRock is introducing a hedge fund targeting retail investors in Singapore and Hong Kong. K and its Taipei-based subsidiary have forged a new business agreement. In Indonesia, Mount Luatobi Laki-Laki has erupted, causing evacuations and the cancellation of flights, including those to and from Bali. Somalia is launching its first-ever exchange to enable trading in stocks and sukuk bonds. Turning our attention to Africa, Nigerian stocks are struggling to establish a definitive trend, despite rising crude oil prices that usually benefit the nation's financial standing. Lastly, in the Americas, Brazil has officially declared itself free of bird flu, which will allow the country to resume its export activities. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.